Welcome to Magpie Stories Writing Tips, a helping hand from one writer to another. If you enjoy the video, please consider liking, subscribing and commenting. I hope you have a pleasant time listening. The characters in your piece are the vehicle of the story. They drive action, they carry the plot or plots, and give readers, listeners, viewers, tickers appropriate, an anchor to become invested in the narrative that you are weaving. Characters are not disposable throwaway things, but except when they are. They are there to fill out the world that you create. They need to be real people that have feelings and respond to stimuli. Here are some tips that I use when constructing a character. By the way, all of these can be summed up under the umbrella term character arc, but I thought a deeper dive was warranted. Tip number 1. What's in a name? This is one of the first pitfalls that I inevitably come to. I have spent a lot of time, wasted is a better description, trying to create a character name before even writing one single word. Try to avoid this one. It is one of those little annoyances that will stop you putting pen to paper. Over time the name might come, but for now just put in a placeholder. There can be character X, or you can just pick a Christian name. Just remember you can, in Word you can, hold Ctrl F and replace that name later without scouring every single page that you've written them on. Just ensure that you don't give up because you have not immediately thought of a name. Kind of side note here, a trick I have used to name my characters' last names so they don't sound convoluted is to give the names of streets around where I used to live. This helps make them both random and more realistic. Obviously in the UK this will not always work, as we have roads called Cock Lane, Crotch Crescent and Slut's Hole Lane. Honestly, these are real places, so discretion is often advised. Tip number 2. The character arc. Now, I am not advocating that you reveal every intricate detail about someone that is passing your main character in the street, but you need to consider certain intrinsic behaviours and reactions when you write them into a scene. You need to decide on their motivation, even if only you know it. So think about this scenario. Person A is serving at the till or checkout, depending on location, and your main character buys something, doesn't matter what it is. Perhaps the person is rude. When writing this, imagine, why is this the case? Have they just had a shitty customer, or perhaps they've had bad news? Are they just a bit of a twat? Whatever it is, you need to consider that before writing in their dialogue or actions. Oh, just as a bonus tip, think how that character might then move forward. What might they link to in the world that you create? Might they, even if they're a background character, have some plot points you might use in a later piece in your writing or even another project? I did not know it at the time, but the protagonist in my short story Into the Breach does briefly appear in my main work in progress, and there will be a shameless plug and a link somewhere on screen now for you to watch that should you wish. Tip number 3. Change over time. Developing the character arc. So at the heart of any story is this idea of change over time. What is it about the character that has grown that is different to when we first encounter them? By the way, this applies to all of your main characters. Don't forget to include the antagonists as well. You do not want a one-dimensional vision who just wants to take over the world, or whatever it is. When exploring your antagonists, in particular, what is their character flaw? Irrespective of genre or plot, what is holding them back from a particular goal? Here you must think about the human condition, the primary drivers that make us act or lead us to inaction. This could be, and please note this is not an exhaustive list, things such as anger, fear, love, hate, joy, naivety, innocence, bitterness, jealousy. Whatever the primary driver, use this as motivation for your character at the beginning of your story. Put yourself in their mindset. If you are not sure about character motivation and how it can work, a good fallback is Shakespeare. Well, he wrote about the human condition. As such, we can identify with characters that act according to different motives and recognise their shortcomings in ourselves. Let's take Macbeth's character arc, which is completely dominated by his vaulting ambition. He starts off as a loyal soldier. He is then tempted and he plots regicide, the killing of his king, the worst crime possible. He then has this idea of ambition and then this idea of shame. He murders innocents, and from that he becomes afraid of the repercussions of this. However, his pride, later on in the play, when the witches reveal that in his own mind he is immortal and beyond harm, and this pride leads to a downfall, and revenge is the primary driver at the end of the play, and he is deposed and catharsis is allowed to reign, sort of healing the rift that is within Scotland. Anyway, all of these emotions, and the ones that I've capped off here, this idea of temptation, ambition and shame, fear, pride and revenge, they are all part of our shared human experience, regardless from if your character is the lowliest gutter snipe to the ruler of the entirety of a universe. These emotions, these drivers remain constant. Tip number 4, rationality. So this one is a little more esoteric. There must be a rationality behind why your character behaves the way they do. I did sort of touch upon this earlier, but here is where a little planning comes into play. What is the goal of the character in relation to the people they encounter? Is it to manipulate, deceive, or even, in some rare cases, be generally pleasant? That is what you need to figure out. Does the character want to get something, and are they prepared to get it at any cost? Are they worried about their reputation? Do they need or want something that is out of reach? I need to add a little caveat here. Rationality is subjective. In the mind of your character, is the risk they take rational? Is the risk worth the reward? And this can change dependent on context. We all know that with alcohol, for example, the sense of risk and rewards shifts massively. Tip number 5. Change is a constant. You can change your character, a little part, a detail, a motivation, hell, even the whole damn thing. Your characters need to evolve just like you have. Hopefully, you have changed a little over the years. Decided something you once thought was amazing no longer is, and I still contest that wearing a double cuff shirt, rolled fully down of course, with a tuxedo jacket and jeans is still cool. The same can be said of a character. I know that in my own writing I have changed a character, several characters completely. The story just did not fit the way I wanted it to, and after axing my imaginary creations, hard to do but ultimately necessary, the story began to flow and make sense again. I had fallen into the trap of making a character the story, rather than a vehicle to drive it. Characters need to inhabit your world and be believable, even if you never explain a reason to the audience. Have kind of a little checklist at the back of your mind as to why they might behave a certain way. If they are evil, what is their goal? Why do they behave the way they do? What has set them on this path? Have fun with the denizens of your world. Make them live in it. Just remember, you can always change the words on a page if it does not fit. Now, stop watching YouTube videos, pick up a pen, and get writing.
Thank you for listening to Magpie Stories. If you found these tips helpful, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. You'll hear from me again soon.